Um, we are the 14th of October, and here it's 9:42 a.m. and I improvise a video. I talk with God. He knows that I haven't planned no light, or I haven't checked what's in the background, because this is the kind of insanity that drives me crazy. So I will not overinterpret. I will just speak what I have on my mind, what I think. I know that I suffer from contradictions, and I'm in the process of understanding, or I've understood that first I try to be faithful to one of my ethical standards that I haven't broken yet. I don't know. To share the book that I said I would share. As long as I make videos consciously in English, or where I speak in English or whatever. And also from now on I will publish in the description below the links to my free channels. So these books, and I will briefly comment. If people look on the internet, they can see that there's a growing consciousness developed on the internet, which make people realize that there are problems with the educational system, the bureaucracy, the welfare state, and many other topics. These are the soft books. And I improvise really this video because I will publish the video on the channel Eternal Light. And what I intend to do is to keep publishing videos on the channel Eternal Light as long as I can, and maybe on the French channel Phénoménologie de l'Esprit. But yeah, I don't know, but that's why I intend to do, because precisely I have made a very long video on my French channel to start a revolution in France, but also in the US, and eventually in the world at large. And I will talk about this because precisely on a conscious level, what I have been trying to do is to reach Americans. First, it was Apollonian Germ, but eventually most of the videos that I have, if not all, almost all the videos that I have published in English since 2019, and especially in 2022, indirectly the purpose was to reach Americans. Either I spoke to individuals who happen to be American citizens, or to America at large, or to the world, but in America, in English language. But in a way, I've always had America in mind. And so what I consciously did, I don't know what the outcome will be, but to be an American, because I've understood. Here I'm in a mood to smile or to laugh, but one of my ethical standards is that I try not to expect from others what I do not expect from myself first. And I have been very frustrated for many weeks or months because Apollonian Germ did not watch my videos. But then I realized, but I do not watch my own videos myself, so how could I require from anyone else to take the time to watch my videos if I myself think that they are worthless and I do not watch them? So ever since I realized this, I've spent a few hours when I do something to clean my room, as Peterson says. I put my own video in the background. Sometimes I meditate my own thoughts, but by rewatching some of my older videos, I do not do this systematically, but now watching my own videos or listening to my own words is part of my process of intellectual development. So yeah, that's the first thing. And then with my book that I promote, Get Rid of the Bureaucracy, the Educational System, Start a Revolution in America, which is what I intend to do in a way. I don't know what I realized, but what would an American do? And in this sense, this is my... I have been very critical of America, but this is my sweet... seducing in a good sense, like trying to seduce the person you are interested in. What would make the Americans be interested in me for the better? Well, here I'm quite in a funny mood, but the American Revolution started by people who refused to pay taxes. And I've said to myself, I suffer from so many contradictions, and whatever wrong I accuse others of doing, it will come back at me, because in the grand view, I am responsible for all the wrongs. But that's how I understand myself. I have to say no to some things that I consider not acceptable. And I know what I consider not acceptable. And this is probably what will come back to haunt me in a way. But for instance, paying taxes. It's not I understand, because the refusal to pay taxes is an immoral behavior. But then what are the taxes used for? And I have traveled so fast, intellectually and spiritually, that I have gone through all the steps very fast sometimes, but I have explored all the steps. So I have the total view, but I have gone too fast. So I have understood in the past few weeks, last month, thanks to Apollonian Germ, that I had to go back to... I have to go through the process again, in a sense, because there are things which were so self-evident for me, but I realized they are not evident at all for others. So I travel too fast, in a way. And I have realized what is really important. Who suffers from the situation in the West? It depends on the perspective. But what I have thought for many months and many years is that the welfare state, the educational system, from a common sense point of view, common sense. Let us begin with common sense. Then it can be transcended eventually. But there's a problem with the educational system, the welfare state, crime, and corruption, etc. From a common sense point of view, if you do not overthink, like, yeah, but it brings about its own negation, which it does actually. But when I try to share dialectical thoughts in a planned manner, it doesn't work. That's probably dialectics if you plan it. So yeah, seriously, I genuinely, I record this video to say what I intend to do. Maybe that's partly if I can be honest when I speak calmly. This will be an honest video. If not, this will be a scientific inquiry, namely, this is what I thought before trying to set my ethical standards. I will explain later, but I set myself. But the reason why the Americans do not watch my videos, and I've been also very frustrated with that. I receive no comments. I arouse no interest whatsoever. Although I think that my content is getting better and better intellectually when I work slightly. Here I'm not really working. But I've realized, but I cannot expect others to do what I think would be right in my current perspective, namely, there's a problem with the welfare state, the educational system, and the entire, what they call the system. And one way of solving the problem is to say, I refuse to keep reinforcing and strengthening the system. I had it's part of my development, an attempt to become autonomous and self-sufficient from a material standpoint by growing a permaculture farm, but I no longer can because I am partly disabled. This is part of my contradiction, and I will not now try to start but just to say, like the Americans with the Tea Party in the official narrative, no more, the welfare state. These are the soft book, but finance, an educational system, etc. And I have tried to be consistent. Namely, I offer education. As long as I publish video, I try to educate people. Here, I speak normally, but the videos which are structured, I don't know if I will still make structured video or not, but my videos about logic, these are a kind of a replacement of the educational system, because it puts the basics of thinking correctly, or when I offer the full view, or actually all my videos which are partly structured with my documents, the phenomenology, which is the life of spirit, the encyclopedic view, and the logic, in my view, what I've attempted to do is, when I'm in a good mood, is to share what I call the idea with others, so that they might use this, mostly the intelligent people, to improve their own view and to share the knowledge. And what I say to myself is that if others don't do this, I will keep improving my system, as I call this. This is part of my partly fanatical German self, and I will really do this. I mean, if people, I will keep improving my system. But one of the view that I've had is I have to share my perspective. This is here my Hegelian view for the good, namely, I have my role is to be the link and to share the perspective. That's what I have thought for many years, maybe, for good or bad. It's not really clear, but what I want to say is, I do not just want to abolish the educational system. I try to offer a replacement. Not a great replacement, or precisely a great replacement, but not a demographic. This replacement, you will enjoy it. Maybe, well. No, seriously, which is serious maybe, but I've understood recently, this is what has intentionally driven my actions, namely, I cannot ask anything from the Americans, and I won't if I do not apply my own teachings. Namely, I have to start a revolution in my own empirical country. And that's what I intend to do, but I don't want to. I want to start a revolution in my country, but just to get the attention of the Americans, which would be very American, maybe. That's the mixture of the revolutionary American mindset of the 18th century and the show business over the top of the second half of the 20th century. I don't know. No, but consciously, this is what I've tried to do. Namely, I have the certainty that the life of spirit, the spirit of God, with whom I identify, my spirit, I'm sure of this, it is the most complete, the most perfect. In this sense, also, America is the current America of the 21st century is a perfect country in terms of intellectual life, because there are all the tendencies, all the oppositions, all the contradictions, and there are all the points of view from an intellectual standpoint. It's complete. There are, I will not make all the list, but the anthropological tendencies, namely the question of race, all groups, economics, all points of view, politics, all viewpoints, spirituality, almost all religions, to the limited quantitative proportions, but also spirituality, New Age. It's just philosophy. They don't have really philosophers, and I try to complement and to bring the icing on the cake or the cherry on top. And so in this sense, I am clear-minded in my intentions, namely France, the English-speaking persons who watch this, they probably, as of now, in a chronological perspective, they do not speak French, or most of them probably won't. I'm talking to others, not to myself, watching my own videos, because this is part of the insanity or whatever. France. I will talk about France. I live empirically in a region called Alsace, which is on the border to Germany. And if I speak honestly, I really do believe that this region, from a historical, but also empirical, belongs to Germany, which is kind of very problematic to say. I mean, we can say this, but it implies that the last person who wanted to incorporate Alsace into Germany, well, he was a German politician, or an Austrian politician during German politics. Yeah, so it's controversial to say this from a moral standpoint, but in this sense, I have many problems. This is one of the many contradictions. This is one of the contradictions. I mean, it's not really a contradiction, but for me, my region, it's very clear. The map of the problem is very clear in the sense that I do not identify as a Frenchman, or if I do, it is empirically. But when I say empirically I'm a Frenchman, there is another contradiction. I mean, for me, even if I say I am a Frenchman, it means I am a German, and here it's not the metaphysical German, here it's the geographical and the Germany of citizenship. So even because I have several identities, I think of myself as being metaphysically German, scientifically and culturally Anglo-Saxon, and culturally American in a way. And French and France is my language. In a way, that's how I define my identity usually. But if I have to identify as a Frenchman empirically, I identify as a Frenchman living in a region which, in my view, if I do not overthink, really belongs to Germany. That's why it's very easy to annoy the French, because whatever I say is annoying for the French. So this is kind of the conflict, like I gotta be careful with what I say, but no, I will say without overthinking. It's like the Southern Americans who think we belong not to the US because of the Southern, etc., or the Catalans in Spain, or the northern part of Italy, or so there is division within a country. Because what I reproach on an empirical level with my historical knowledge to the French state from the perspective of Alsace is that it tried to erase the Germanic identity, because the French state has erased all cultural identities of the native, in terms of historical perspective, French people, which was and still is partly diverse within a European and anthropologically a European people. I mean, the white people of France have almost always been diverse. In this sense, the left is right, but then they say, they forget to say that the universal was ethnic homogeneity. So the French state, here I speak briefly, but the French state has erased or tried to the ethno-cultural identities of the ethnically homogeneous European population of France, and one of the effects is that Alsace has been kind of incorporated within the French state, and then there are historical reasons, conflicts between Germany and France, etc., but whatever. Even if God forces me to say empirically I'm a Frenchman, for me it means I am Frenchman in a sense. I belong to a region which, in my view, is German or Germanic. So yeah, so in this sense, my relationship to France, I respect France because I have a culture, but here it's a European culture, and also French. Here, French means the whole of France. I have a French culture because this is the language of my native. I will be honest. I will speak ordinarily without overthinking. This is my native language from an empirical perspective, but precisely for the reasons that I've explained, namely that the French state, etc., the problems with Germany, etc. But in a sense, I have a French culture because of language, but I acknowledge that French literature is the best, but I say this because I can read it well. If I were an Englishman, probably I would say English literature is the best. And even there might be competition because, but my problem is that empirically I cannot read Wordsworth, Milton, and that's a problem. There are worse problems to have, or maybe not. I can anticipate. No, but seriously, here it's really profound because it touches kind of the essence of man in a way. On an empirical level, I cannot really appreciate foreign literature as it should be appreciated because of the limitation of language. There are true greatness what is the greatest literary traditions in the world? I would say spontaneously ancient Greece, England, France. There's no order, but I would say ancient Greece, England, France, and then partly Germany. But the three I would say would be just literature and poetry. England, France, and Greece. And I can only truly appreciate French literature and French poetry because the vocabulary is too complex for most of other languages. So that's my relationship to France. And I acknowledge that France has been a great country intellectually, politically. It has been very influential. I can know this because I have a culture. But I do not feel spontaneous love for France. I really don't. And the people that I have loved empirically in this country, they have most or if not all been from a region which in my view should belong to Germany or ought to have belonged to Germany or whatever. So that's my attempt to solve the contradiction, which is kind of honest in a way because this is what I really think. But so I have respect for France, but I've just made a video in French on my channel a couple of days ago where I kind of trash talk the French, but on an intellectual level, not the masses, although I do, but it's the intellectual elite in the sense I am intelligent enough to know that the standards of the US in the 21st century and the standards of France, there is no comparison yet, because France, which is still one of the greatest country in terms of intellectual production in the world, I mean in the 21st century. I'm not talking about historically, but in the 21st century, this is still one of the very best because it is European, anthropologically, not also culturally, but less and less. But the comparison. So here I will speak. I want to make this video. I will just explain myself clearly, although it's kind of a little bit chaotic. I will express myself clearly. In the current perspective of the 21st century, what is the greatest country on earth in terms of intellectual and spiritual development? The United States of America, without any doubt. But historically, if we take into account the historical references, Germany, because of the philosophers and the poets and the musicians, etc., etc., and then England and France, because of the scientists in England and the writer, the politician, the political theorist, partly the philosopher to a certain extent, the scientist as well. So these three countries, Germany, England, and France, which are partly influenced by ancient Greece, ancient Rome, the Italian Renaissance, and partly Jewish ideas. That's how I envision my worldview, namely Germany, England, and France. That's the triangle, the holy European trinity, I don't know, which is itself influenced by Italy twice through the Renaissance and Rome, ancient Greece, and let us not forget the Jews. For good or bad, they have influenced, it has to be acknowledged, tremendous impact. I mean, tremendous in comparison with the tiny proportion, but Christianity, from a historical perspective, is a Jewish religion. And then the Jewish influence has really started to become important from a historical perspective in the 19th century. But that's why. But my view of Europe as a cultural, intellectual, and spiritual, in a way, entity, it's Germany, England, and France. England, it includes Scotland. These three countries which are influenced by ancient Greece and Rome, and then the Italian Renaissance. Hopefully it's clear. Anyone with vaguely European culture would agree. And this triangle has produced, historically, the United States of America. So what was I saying? So in my view, Germany, here I'm kind of, it's partly not very clear, but it's the greatest country in the sky, maybe on Earth, but the problem is, historically it's the greatest country on Earth, but in the context of the 21st century, these are the US in terms of intellectual and spiritual development and life of Geist and science, etc. Because there's the celestial Germany and the empirical Germany. And I love the empirical Germany. That's where I think I belong empirically. But the celestial or the metaphysical Germany, here it's quite complex. But whatever. But yeah, what I know with certainty is that in the 21st century, the US are a perfect country because all the tendencies are present, at least slightly, but it's predominantly a European country in anthropology, culture, and soul and spirit. It still is. And forever will be. So, because I'm in a process here, I speak to God who knows everything. I have understood that I have to love myself as an empirical individual. This is what God wants, basically. God wants me to love myself. But then I have a conflict because I try to do the will of God as distinct from me. Like I'm trying to please God. No, seriously, I'm trying to do what I think the God who knows everything thinks is right. Which means I do not read Hegel any longer. I improvise videos. I publish videos without modifying. I give myself constraints and limits. Not with this video, but sometimes I give myself challenges. 8 hours or 20 minutes. Maybe I have to find a balance between the two, I don't know. Seriously, these are the kind of things that I do on a conscious level to try to do what an all-knowing God distinct from me, I think he wants me to do. He wants me to be me, but here I am honest with myself. Being me, here I have a conflict, which in a way it's not really a conflict, because being me implies trying to perform. Because here it's the conflict that I've been thinking about. There is a feminine view of love, which is acceptance, and I have a problem with this view, because at some moment I will have to accept everything, but as long as I can speak, I have a problem. Namely, I have a mask. God knows that I have a masculine view, namely I want to achieve, I want to perform, and I want to be loved for what I achieve from a masculine sense. Namely, I have this, sometimes I have really the kind of fanatical German scientific self, but when I remove the fanaticism, when I'm in a more stable mood, I still want to achieve. I am competitive. And in this sense, I have a problem with the feminine type of love, which is in the realm of politics. This is leftism, and empirically, this is really France. That's why I have a problem with France. Is that the French, they tolerate mediocrity on an intellectual level, and it's still very good because it's a European country. But the problem that I have with France is that, and this is why I am an American in my view, is that everyone is a Marxist, the state takes care of everything, the educational system, they tolerate really mediocrity in the negative sense. There is mediocrity, which is mean just to be in the middle, okay, but really they tolerate mediocrity, which the Americans, even though they are decadent, they don't. And they are French people who are in a... Here it's the conflict, really, how I interpret this, the conflict between left and right within the white psyche. So for white people, the left, the problem that I have with the left is that they tolerate mediocrity. Here, mediocrity doesn't mean in the middle, like an IQ of 100 in the bell curve distribution, but really they tolerate things which should not be tolerated. And the right, here they are. It's my evil self, which is not evil, if we are honest. It's just sometimes just to set standards. Because here, so I have had this tendency in the past few months, what I call my insane leftist self, from a white perspective, which says, but if you say students going through the educational system, they should be able to read and write and speak correctly, you are being evil, because this is the kind of insanity, like this leftist kind of tolerance for mediocrity in the negative sense, it cannot be tolerated. And here being right-wing is evil from the perspective of this insane left, but actually it's just common sense. This is, yeah. So in this sense, I understand myself, which means basically I have a problem with France on a political level, because they really tolerate things which should not be tolerated in terms of the welfare state, the mediocrity at all levels. And the way here, maybe that's the best of me, I don't know. The way I try to solve the conflict, and it's the contradiction. It's the same in France and in the US, but it's the same in every Western country. I have a problem. Another. I will talk for a very long time. No, I had other plans, but I'm in the mood to speak. So the problem that I have politically with France, this is what I talk about in my French video. It's first socialism, which I associate with mediocrity in a bad sense. Like, yeah, that's my first. France is a Marxist country in the negative sense. The good aspect of Marxism, here I'm honest, that France produces great Marxist intellectuals, namely really intelligent people who are communist, not in a derogatory sense, but in a what I call a noble sense, namely they share the same view than that of the libertarians on the right. They want to abolish politics, but intelligently. The stupid way of abolishing politics is political correctness, censorship, etc. The intelligent way is here. This is where I kind of praise Karl Marx when he's intelligent, namely the Karl Marx who wanted to abolish politics intelligently. And the right-wing libertarians, Hans Hermann Hoppe and Rothbard, they do the same. So in this sense, France has to be respected for the Marxist legacy in the good sense. Most of Marxists in France, they really are, for me it's derogatory when I use it ordinarily, but there is a tradition of Marxism in France which is worthy of respect, because they are, I wouldn't say patriotic, but some of them are. They are kind of reactionary socialists. I mean, reactionary socialists, when I say this, it's a praise in a way. It's good. They are all, yeah, I understand myself, but conservative socialist, reactionary socialist, it's kind of praise when I say this. And I know that we find this political tendency in various modes. Here I could use the category of continuity, discretion, degree, etc. But in every Western country there is a political revolt against the system which is leaning towards reactionary socialism. That's a broad way of saying we want the good of the people, but with certain standards of behavior, etc., etc. And they can try to solve the contradiction in various ways. There are those who advocate intelligent, reactionary, left-wing conservatism, and there are those who say, okay, it cannot work with diversity, and that's how they become right-wing fascist or resurgence of national socialism, etc. This is how it works. But socialism, not in a bureaucratic, technocratic, Soviet type of style. It's an idea which appeals both to the intelligent left and the intelligent right. Yeah. And then there are the mind games of the libertarians who say, but the National Socialists, they were evil because they were socialists. This kind of attempt to manipulate, it's pretty smart. It's pretty smart. I know that a lot of libertarians in America, they do this. Namely, they try to outsmart the left by saying, hey, we are like you. We are against the National Socialists because they are socialists. You are against them. That's not how they say, but that's what they think. It's so self-evident that the left, they are against the German nationalists because of the ethnic aspect, and the right-wing libertarians, which is the modern version of political white assertion, as I call this, they try to escape the leftist moral trap in a way by saying we reject them because of their economic policies. That's how it works in most, if not all, Western countries. So yeah. What was I saying? So yeah, the first problem that I have with France, which I do not identify as my country, because even when I do identify as a Frenchman, I identify with the German side. Here it's a inner geopolitical, not geopolitical, historically yes, but political European inner conflict. Really, that's the again, these Europeans with their problems. Europeans of Europe, it can be quite exhausting, I guess, I don't know, or boring for others. Not boring, but annoying. Yeah, but that's my perspective. Yeah, but and the other problem from an intellectual standpoint, of course, is the anti-racist legislation, which prevents people from speaking just calmly and rationally. It prevents investigation to talk about anthropology and genetics and the development of science and sociobiology. And in this sense, France has really become a regressive country intellectually, because its own standards in the 19th century and the 18th century and even the 17th, it was, I mean, what we would call modern intellectual development. It's in the 18th century with the Enlightenment in a good aspect, namely freedom of thought. And in this sense, this is what I call, when I do not define too rigorously, the Anglo-Saxon spirit, not mind, but spirit, the spirit of inquiry, investigation, etc. In this sense, the French of the 18th century, they were partly, here the term would not be, but they share the same spirit of science for the good, really. Not the technocratic totalitarian, but really a spirit of inquisitive inquiry, questioning, authority in the name of principle of intellectual liberty. Yeah, and it has degenerated in France in the 20th century, and now France has really become regressive, and this is really frustrating. That's why intellectually it's still okay, because it's a European country with a high culture and tradition, but it's way below England and modern England, I mean, which is still itself decadent in comparison with its own standards, but modern England, the US, and all the other Western Anglo-Saxon countries, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc., where they can investigate the development of science. Yeah, so these are the two problems that I have on an intellectual and spiritual level. Yeah, what was I saying? So yeah, God, that's how I understand. God wants me to be myself, but being myself implies I have when I'm in a good mood, I have a competitive side, and I want to achieve. This is what I am. And if I will try to outsmart God, if God wants me to be me, he has to accept that being me implies I want to achieve intellectually, but also morally. I just want to. Here I will say, which is the kind of intent, I just would like to be. If I say I would like, if I say I want, does it make a difference? Will I be... I want to achieve on an individual level, to have a sense of self-worth in masculine endeavors, politics, science, ethics. I have this in me in a way, and this is enough to be evil in a sense that it means that I do not accept things how they are. I want to improve, but who am I to try to improve the work of God? I have to be punished for trying to improve what is already maybe perfect. This is my leftist moral self tormenting me for trying to achieve a sense of self-worth. That's the masculine and the feminine in my psyche, the left and the right. But I understood also recently that in order to be evil, I don't have to play a role, I just have to be myself. Namely to say, and then it will come back at me, so that's part of the grand plan, I guess, because I have, if I just speak ordinarily, I exteriorize my negativity and it will come back at me, so that's part of the plan, I guess. But just to say that there really is a problem with the intellectual and ethical standards, but then people say, but you are blaming this on us, it's your fault. Yes, okay, but that's why it's part of the process. But when I speak spontaneously, I think that there are things which cannot be accepted, and the only, here in the sense, I reconcile Nietzsche, Hegel, whatever. I cannot blame on others what I do not change for myself. This is what I keep repeating, once I understand that there is a problem, the problem no longer has to exist if I become aware of this. So what I've consciously done with this video, with my previous video in French, is I will start a revolution in my own country, not for the good of the French, but just to be an American in mind, at least, and to try to impress Americans. That's the conscious decision. Then the consequences, the outcome of my decisions, well, yeah. And yet then the relationship between the situation in America, the US, and France, and all other Western countries, it can be deduced without empirical confirmation. It's simply that there are three sides. These are not sides, there are three tendencies, the way I envision this. There is, with the question of the great replacement, those who say, the left, it's a good thing, we have to accept, okay. Then there are the right wing, kind of negative, politically, and sometimes even morally, depends, but who say it should not happen, let's revert back to before, which implies conflict in a way. And here I try to find the proper balance between the two. This is an intellectual effort. For me, it begins with a leftist view. This is how I have thought already many years ago, is that if you want to be replaced, at least do not do not destroy your own country, all the institutions. If really the leftists, they want to replace themselves, the white leftists, at least give to those who come to replace you, let them enjoy the best of your civilization and the product of the work of your ancestors in a historical perspective. Namely, if you want to replace yourself, leave behind you a functional educational system, a functional economy, etc., etc. But then, that's the right-wing trick, is that in order for the economy, the educational system, and all the institutions to function, there still has to be white people. This is my attempt to solve the problem. But this is really what I think, namely, and I don't know what will happen, but if I have to be me, as God, I envision, wants this to do, is my political creed, as long as I have to talk about politics, is really right-wing libertarianism, until it becomes just libertarianism, namely a society. That's my political view. As long as there has to be politics, and as long as I have to, or want to, or can, I don't know, talk about politics, my creed is right-wing libertarianism. And the right wing is important. It's right wing, maybe beyond libertarianism, I don't know, until libertarianism is in the middle, namely a society where people have the freedom to associate with who they want, and to disassociate with those they don't want to speak freely. Private property, yes, so there's privacy, and here really it's a good for everyone, and my view is that as a white person here, that's how what I envision. I speak honestly, whatever the consequences will come out of this is I intend, as long as I have to talk about politics, to be a right-wing libertarian, namely to bring forth the political situation where people are free to speak, own, and associate with who they want. And since politics implies conflict, the conflict is either they are intelligent enough to agree, and then if they agree with the libertarian ideals, I have kind of no problem, because the libertarian ideals implies if I do not want to associate with certain type of people, I can be with those I want to be. I can be in a group, I can be alone, etc. I'm not saying that it will happen, but this is what enables a libertarian society. And in this sense, the problems that I would have in the realm of politics would be with those who would refuse this ideal. And also I'm intelligent enough to understand that the libertarian ideal requires a certain level of quantitative intelligence. That's why it appeals predominantly to certain ethnic groups, mostly whites, also partly Jews and others, but libertarianism, in a right-wing version, in all types actually, but libertarianism is an ideology, a political ideology for smart people. That's, yeah. But that's what I think. I will try to act like a libertarian. Maybe I will fail, or whatever, but this is what I consciously intend to do. And acting like a libertarian doesn't mean going out and say, oh, let's bring a revolution, that would be a socialist. No, it means I do what I think is right, and as long as I can, and if the state or the bureaucracy or whatever tries to prevent me, I will just say no. And then I have a system to back this up. That's my view. And how I reconcile libertarianism and communism is simply I try to. It's not that I'm willing to share my property because I'm a libertarian communist politically. I will not force my property onto others. I have made this mistake. But if others say, okay, we want your books, your supplies, right now I will keep my computer, but I will say, okay, I try to be politically consistent in this sense. So yeah, that's the story that I tell myself. And in a libertarian society, I would be able to talk to the Americans because I will. But yeah, I know it's by the time that, okay, it would be too complex. But yeah, I would be able to talk. If it happens or not, it's not important. It's here the principle that may be a little bit Kantian. I would be able to talk about race. I would be able to associate with the people I want to be with and those I don't want to be with, etc., etc. I'm not saying that it will happen, but this is what ought to happen for everyone who embraces the libertarian ideal. Yeah. And then to solve the problem of education, it will not happen again in this sense, but this is what happens. Probably that schools would be free to discriminate. But my purpose is to bring about some sort of a universal educational system through the internet, partly. It's complicated, but whatever. So I am clear with that. And the video already is too long and people will not watch, so I'm just talking to myself. I will make 20 views. But I said I want to record what I think, just to keep track of the intention, the principles that guide my actions. Because, yeah. No. Okay. I will note 54 minutes. I will talk about my soul and love. I become smarter every waking hour, which makes me retrospectively think of myself as being dumb because with my current state of knowledge, I would have done things differently, etc., etc. I could repeat this, so yeah. What I have understood, or think I have, recently, in the past few days or a couple of weeks maybe, is that what I call the real God, the supermind, it was the 30%, then the 3%, then the 0.3%. I've understood that what I call the real God is what people hate most of the time, and what I call the negative, which I have identified with my empirical self, that the various religions call the devil, Satan, Lucifer, Loki, etc., etc. And I've started to realize that actually it was inverted, that everything that people call good, when they watch my videos, they will associate this with my negative self, what I call my negative self, namely my empirical self, Luca, I have maybe to use my name, and what I call my super metaphysical self, my German self, the real God. Whenever I speak like the real God, a little bit arrogant, etc., people hate this because they don't understand, because they feel their sense of individuality being threatened. It can be frightening because it is frightening for me and also for others, etc. But I understand. But I try to be consistent. My entire intellectual life, maybe my entire life, has led me to believe, not to believe, to know actually that spirit is the real reality. And I will not here I don't know who I am talking to, because when I don't know who I'm talking to, I talk to the real God, because what I have understood is that the real God maybe wanted to become human, so to become me, Luca, and I have failed, or I don't know if I have disappointed him or failed, because I have tried to be the real God, because I thought that my empirical self was worthless, and that I had to be. It's not, oh, I want to become God, but simply when I started to read Hegel, etc., I tried to imitate the standards of Hegel because I thought that my empirical self was not good enough. And now I'm in a process of, okay, maybe I've misunderstood this completely, but I will not suddenly change my entire worldview, because in a sense, here I talk, I don't know who, but for me, who is my father? Not my first spiritual father, not my empirical father, but my father. Of course, it's God, but it's also Hegel, because God is kind of abstract. So when I think about my father, I think about Hegel, the German metaphysician of the 19th century. And I have a problem with my father, but also, here is how I envision things. When I say God is my father, I hope that he knows that, okay, I'm doing my limited best as an empirical individual. That's when I think of myself as an individual in relation to a transcendent, metaphysical father, the sky father. When I think of this father as being God, I say to myself, I'm trying to impress you, and you know that it's difficult because I am limited, and you know that I suffer from many problems. You know that I don't understand. You know, there's kind of I understand. I wouldn't say I understand myself, but when I envision God as my father in the sky, he's kind of demanding, which is the role of a father, but he understands that my situation, my story, being reason, the empirical aspect, the metaphysical aspect, the dialectics, I'm doing my best on an intellectual level. I try to follow certain rules, certain standards, but I constantly encounter contradictions. So in this sense, I accept the demand, but I just would like God as a father to understand that it's difficult. Yeah. And then there's the father being Hegel, and here that's where I have a negative relationship with my father, in the sense that Hegel really is demanding. That's when I think of Hegel as being my father, he's in a way he's too demanding, but I don't want to give up because I really want to impress him. So I have really this, I kind of partly hate him sometimes, but still it's Hegel as I envision him, and I just want to impress Hegel. And sacrificing all intellectual rigors, which is very anti-Hegelian, which is maybe Hegelian, is in the sense I cannot identify with God, least with, because Hegel really, here I don't know who I am talking to. Let us imagine that there's an all-knowing God, the one I've just talked before, who understands. I really admire Hegel. He really is my hero. And he's a hero who became a father, and I this is Hegel that I hate as the German metaphysician, because he's way too demanding. And here, when I say this, I do not identify with Hegel. Sometimes I do because the alien, etc. But when I think of Hegel as my metaphysical father, sometimes I want to antagonize him. Sometimes I just want to antagonize him because, okay, I will lose, but I just want to impress Hegel. Really, and I cannot envision Hegel. Precisely, that's the difference between God and Hegel as the father figure. I cannot envision Hegel, the boring German metaphysician, saying, well, I understand you. I can only imagine Hegel, if there is an other side, wherever. Hey, I've done my best. I've worked as hard as I could with my limitations. Even if I've done the best I could, I can envision Hegel saying, "Ja, es ist." What would he say in German? Nicht zu schlecht. Not too bad. No, but seriously. Here I will be serious and emotional. If there is an other side, whatever, or another plane of existence, and if we have to meet people, not for the good part, but at least not to be tormented or whatever, if there are really, here it's my highest honesty, maybe people read that I want to impress, or to, if that's the story of finding a redemption in the eyes of the ancestors, like a Theoden in The Lord of the Rings. The people that I do not want to embarrass, really, it's kind of insane, but these are the German metaphysicians, even if they are not metaphysicians, but if there is an other side at some moment, I know I'm not stupid enough to believe, I will meet Hegel and Kant and Nietzsche, etc. But if somehow at some plane of existence, the people that I'm trying to impress and towards whom I feel like an embarrassment, as long as I haven't achieved, this is really Hegel, Nietzsche, and Kant, and the others. This is really my family, in the sense of they are the ones I want to impress, to feel I belong. I've already thought about this. It's really some weird family. Sometimes it's the Corleone family, but still, it's yeah. So in this sense, really, whatever my problems are, whenever I try to do good, at the, I'm not in a mood to make a joke. At the highest level, it's really Hegel, Nietzsche, and Kant. Kant, it's the moral aspect. Nietzsche, when I'm really serious, not the Nietzsche who went crazy, but really a Nietzsche who had a strength of the will, but in a way, the will to do good, in a Nietzschean sense, but it's not Nietzsche as a kind of the Joker who wants to just bring disruption. Really, the best Nietzsche who would use the Nietzschean. If I could talk to Nietzsche, I would not be able, because I don't really believe that there is a Nietzsche with his mustache on the other in another dimension or whatever. But if I had to envision this, if I could speak to Nietzsche, I would want him to say, okay, beyond good and evil, etc. Yeah, that's formalism. Actually, the will to power is to do good, but not the stupid good, but really Nietzschean good in a sense. I don't know, here it's whatever, but I kind of understand myself. Or not, maybe, but just my view that Nietzsche, which implies not a rigorous, it's the spirit of Nietzsche has to be good, because Nietzsche can be, yeah, that's. And then, of course, Hegel. Yeah. So for me, this is clear. When in this sense, my family, these are the German metaphysicians. On a metaphysical plane, they are the ones that, as of now, I have to think here. That's why I'm whatever, when the Christians or the Muslims or the Jews or the pagans or whatever, when they think, I have to act good, there are various motives for acting righteously. There's the fear of punishment, which is prevalent in the Abrahamic religion, and there's also sometimes the will to impress, the sky father, as they call this. And in a sense, I'm a religious person like all the others, simply that the people that I'm trying to impress, it's not Yahweh or Allah or God or Brahma or whoever, it's the German metaphysicians. Notably Hegel, really, as I envisioned it, yeah. And this is really my ancestors, in this sense. I identify them with the German metaphysician, and these are really yeah, I kind of understand myself. They are the ones I draw inspiration and strength and courage and morality from. That's the problem. No, but seriously. And in the sense, this is what I call Germany. On a metaphysical level, these are simply the German metaphysicians, although Nietzsche was not strictly speaking a metaphysician, but also he partly was. That's what Heidegger said. So basically, yeah, at some plane of existence, the German metaphysical family. Yeah. And in this sense, I do not feel worthy of them, but I do not feel guilty for not being worthy, precisely because my life is not over yet. And I will, yeah. So in a sense, yeah. But then on the question of love, on a singular level, officially I am 30 years old, there is only one person on a singular level that I have really loved. It's my teenage romance, Louison. And she's the one that I think about when I suffer a lot, because I know God knows the story. I know the story. People who watch this will know the story, because she loved me, but she loved me precisely. Here I will use maybe the best in me against the God who wants me to be myself, whatever, to accept myself. But my way of acceptance is she loved me for who I was, or she loved me because of who I am, but not because in a way she had to, because of biological ties of family or sociological connections, etc., but because that's what I thought, she really enjoyed being with me because I was good looking. No, that's not true. Or maybe, no. But because maybe she loved my personality, my sense of humor, and she loved being with me. And I felt that I could be me with her without playing a role. And also being me implies that's part of my sometimes the twisted self. But yeah, and in this sense, she's the only person that I have ever loved as of now. And God knows, because here when I really feel this is what has caused many of my decisions, conscious or unconscious, when I really suffer. I do not think about happy memories in my childhood. I do not think about happy memories over the past 13 years. And in this sense, I spontaneously tend to say sometimes that my life ended in 2009. And I also, so it's kind of weird, like, yeah. When I left her, in a way. And when did my life begin? There's the official date of birth, there's the first moment of consciousness, and then the kind of romantic aspect that my life really began in 2008 when I was in love officially, in a sense, or when I started my relationship with her. Yeah. and then. But being who I am, this is what I think. I tried to please her, but not like in a sense, but being just who I was, but also there was already this kind of competitive aspect of love, the good aspect, namely, even when she was satisfied, or she said she was, I still wanted to impress her and to also there was also sometimes distance, etc. But I didn't want her to accept me for who I was, although she did. But I wanted her to accept me, knowing that being me implied that I tried consciously and unconsciously, through sometimes good and sometimes dubious choices, to please her in a sense of the joy of existence. Yeah. And now, the question of love. I found myself in situations, moral and intellectual and ontological, where I believed that the only thing that I could ever love was precisely my teenage romance, and that I would never be able to love anything else except through a sense of duty. Okay, I have to love everything else because I was able to appreciate the joy of being with my teenage sweetheart when I was a teenager, empirically. That's what I believed, and this is what has this is the belief that has caused some of my decisions that I have come to regret recently. But I regret, in a way, the potential consequences, but I do not regret the principle in the sense that if really there is one thing, in everything, if there's just one thing that I have to love, just one, it's my teenage romance. And on this, this is yeah. And this explains a lot, namely that the empirical world, which is partly delusional, or which is kind of delusional, but the empirical world, the natural world, is what enabled me to experience what I call genuine love. And then I have to pay the price, because the natural world is the world of emotions, which bring about moral suffering in a way, and pain through the body. So yeah. But the question that I have asked myself is that, am I allowed to love something other than just this romance, from the good aspect of love? Because I also have loved the experience of pain sometimes, and the experience of freedom. Love, pain, and freedom, this is life. Love is here to appease, soothe the pain caused by free decisions. I don't know, this is the story that I tell myself. But if and God, the God who's supposed to know everything, the God who offers, who is demanding but still provides understanding, that's not a joke about der Verstand. No, yeah. He knows that the people, if I had to say I love you to others, if I were allowed to love spontaneously, other people's, no, other people, yeah, other individuals, if I'm allowed to do this. These are what I call the European gods and goddesses. Apollonian Germ, Stella, Hyperborean reflections, Carolyn, Emerick, and then forgotten roots, Karol, Varg Vikernes of the Thulan perspective, Cachet, Scarlett, Ravenswood, Tom of Survive the Jive, and then the others which I have recognized as being, it's not potential gods, they are in the process of, because they are on the same path, but I don't know enough about them, but the golden one, Oleg, Pagans TV, and there are others, Viveka, Vordram, or whatever. Namely, these are people who have had the same intellectual, psychological, and spiritual path with differences, but the same process. Namely, I know this to be the truth philosophically. They have gone through and still are going through the connection with nature, with their soul in the subjectiver Geist. Objectiver Geist, namely they are aware of politics, to simplify, and they rediscover absoluter Geist, art, of religion, etc., etc. So in this sense, this is what I did not understand. I know this to be the truth philosophically, namely, these people, if I had to express myself in ordinary language, they are not cheaters. I'm not accusing others of being cheaters, because, yeah, but they have not received direct help from spirit, like people who are inspired. I mean, they have in a way, but Jean Robin, Dr. Deep State, who know very well about geopolitics, they have been divinely inspired through faith, in a way, which it has to be good at some point, I guess, but and others, the people, David, Thomas, Wisdom, and all the people who say, oh, I had mystical or spiritual experiences, the Christian God, whatever. Here my problem is that when I feel like the child or the son of God, and when I am anxious or afraid or desperate, I turn toward this Sky Father and I ask for help or for forgiveness or whatever, like Christians or Muslims, etc. So when I think of God as the Sky Father, and I am here on earth and I suffer and I need guidance, I need faith, etc., etc. But this is when I am weak, in a sense. And my view implies trying to be strong, and the decisions here it's complex, because here it's really complex. Does God have to believe in himself? I guess he has to, but here the faith of God is different from the faith of, I would say, humans, in which I include myself when, that here maybe that's how I will solve the problem. For a human, an ordinary empirical individual, to say, I believe in God, or you have to believe in God, otherwise I have been victim of this as a human, because when I experience really fear, anxiety, existential terror sometimes, I turn toward this entity and I say, I'm not saying, oh, I will believe in you and you will save me. No, but I understand why people need faith. But then my worldview, my intellectual worldview, has consisted in trying unconsciously and then more or less consciously to reconstruct God. And from the perspective of God, even if it's the negative, to believe in God, it's not to sit there and to wait for a miracle. It's to work on my own will. That's how I understand. And here it's kind of weird because I speak really I imagine that there's a God, and I know that there is, in the sense that I am not all-knowing, but the way when I'm a little bit more confident, my relation to faith is I have to believe in God, which means I have to believe in myself and what is the best in me. And when I'm honest, I can find qualities. And here is where my leap of faith, the accident of the substance in 2019, it was really inspired by Nietzsche. Like really, when I need, here it's the comical, which is also comical for others maybe, but when I'm in need of help, I do not pray to the Bible or the Quran or whatever. I read Nietzsche and I say, okay, yeah. And when I'm a little bit more confident, or not confident, but when I take decisions which are not based on faith, but which are based on, I act so that God, we have not a positive, but at least, it's the decision, the kind of decision that I take is, I publish my video, whatever the consequences, and I do not consciously delete them. I've had the temptation to modify slightly, but I won't. I publish, I exteriorize. That's Kantian in a sense, because of course it's easy in a sense that I'm just on my computer and I post my videos, but when the consequences will come back at me, I will not recognize them. But if I do at some moment, they will say, oh, it's because you saw this and you didn't understand, etc. So that's my way of being. That's Kant, Luther, the German monk, the Protestant German theologian, namely, that's what I call my Protestant self. It's paradoxically, Protestantism is considered to be, by most Protestants who are vaguely aware of their religion, is faith and salvation through the grace of God. And when I'm really think of myself as being kind of weak, in need of salvation from God, but still with an intention to try to so in a sense I need God as the all-knowing principle who offers understanding, in the sense of I understand your mistakes, etc. I am demanding, but that's I nonetheless understand. So the kind of balance God. Then there's the Hegel as God, who says, whatever you do, well, it's okay, maybe okay, could have been better. No, precisely because your own system says that. No, but seriously. The all-knowing God who is demanding but also partly compassionate. Whereas Hegel, when I think of God as Hegel, he's just demanding. But eventually, if the demands are met at some moment, maybe we'll say, okay, like Don Corleone in his emotional relationship with his sons, I don't know. That's how I envision Hegel, like that's the negative with nonetheless some standards. But then it's not the Germans, they are not just the mafia. There's more to us than that, hopefully. These are the kind of jokes that I can only share with the Nietzsche, Heidegger, Hegel, and Kant. He say, no, I don't belong to this, I don't know what you're talking about. Leave me out of the family business. In this sense, I love the German metaphysicians. whatever, or what I want to say, yeah. What was that? Yeah, so when I speak about my Protestant self, it's grace and salvation through faith. No, it's direct relationship to God, saying, okay, I act out of principle. I may forget in the future, or I may regret the consequences, but at least in my heart I am at peace with the idea that it was motivated by a principle. So that's partly Kant, partly Luther. These are the kind of videos that I do when I say, okay, I post the video without editing. That's what I call my Protestant self, namely, this is what I call faith from the perspective where I'm slightly I feel slightly weak, although partly, I wouldn't say strong, but confident in the sense that I have a stable mood. But my faith is not that God will save me or whatever, but that at some moment God or I will remind myself, if I improve again. I was at peace with the decision of being honest when I took the decision. Yeah, it's difficult then, because when I encounter contradictions in reality, that's the negative. It's difficult to stand because it's easier to speak in front of a computer, etc., but then to confront the contradictions, etc. But yeah, I'm at peace with the decision. That's why I will not modify consciously any video that I posted. I did this once at the very beginning of the beginning of the restarting of this channel, and I did this with the video that I published in 2019. But I will no longer, not even modify. I mean, the description when I have to. Yeah, but I will not modify the video. The past videos, if I modify, it's really to add information for the most recent video if I make a mistake or if I forget, but I will not edit my past videos on any channel. Whatever. I have to encounter a contradiction at some moment. But yeah, let us talk about love. What I love is Europe as the soul, maybe the spirit, but the soul is sweet and tender love, which for me is romantic love. It's the love of a teenager for a girlfriend, and it can be maintained in marriage maybe, but it's really for me European love in the sense that it's romantic. It is a young man and a young woman, in a way. That's the entire history of the best of the European artistic production, not in ancient Greece and Rome, because they did not have this vision of love, but in the Middle Ages and the modern era, the great myth, Tristan and Isolde, Héloïse Abelard, Romeo and Juliet, and Julie and Saint-Preux in Rousseau, and all the romantic stories, Jack and Rose in Titanic. Yeah, that's the really the best of Europe, namely the belief in a tender, sweet. I mean, precisely, yeah, but the belief in romantic love for teenagers. And then there's romantic love for adults, in a way, still young adults, but then romanticism becomes a little bit darker, but it's still romanticism. And here, if I had to say, who do I love? if I had to say I love you to others who are not my past experience or metaphysical principles, but here it's really difficult. That's part of my insight. Just to say I love you, I have to build a very complex, and here it's not a system, but it's still nonetheless very complex. If I had to say I love you, while trying to solve all my contradictions, namely my emotional, romantic, tender aspect with my intellectual rigor, partly German, how the singular and the universal, how to solve all the contradictions. It's a love of the mind and also a love of the heart, and they are not contradictory because, so who do I love? I love the European gods and goddesses that I have listed: Apollonian, Germ, Stella, Hyperborean reflections, Carolyn, Karol, Varg, and Marie, the Thulan perspective, Varg, Vikernes, and Marie Cachet. Survive the Jive, although I don't know him a lot, but I still love him. He's part of the family. Scarlett, Ravenswood, Philosophy Cat, the Golden One, etc. And then Oleg and the others that I do not know enough, but I love them nonetheless because I understand them. Because here it reconciles really it could be rigorously proven, but also there's the emotional aspect, namely I am spontaneously attracted because of their ideas, because they are brilliant, because they have the good aspects, maybe the bad as well, but the good aspect of what I call Europe, and they are all enlightening and brilliant, and light is good, but they are all brilliant. And if I had to express myself clearly, who am I trying to impress? When I am trying to impress individuals, I am not trying to impress my teenage sweetheart, in the sense. I don't really care what she thinks of me, or what she has become empirically, what I have become empirically, but I care about what the principle that lived in her thinks of me. And this principle, I call this Stella. So who do I love? I love Stella, but Stella is very complex because she's an empirical girl with a principle. I love the principle, I am sure, because this is the principle which lived in my teenage sweetheart. But if I had to love again, if I can say I love you again to a woman, no, that's Stella. And who am I trying to impress? It's Stella. Metaphysically, this is Stella. But now, when I have partly recovered my mind over the past week, it's Stella as an empirical girl as well. Who am I afraid to disappoint? Well, it's Stella, but now also Stella as an empirical. But it goes so far that I would like I would like her. No, do I have to say I want her to hear about me in the good aspects, to arouse the interest, and then when she discovers well, I'm here, baby, darling, whatever. I do not intend to move consciously. That's what you taught me. Men who are willing to stand for what they say on the internet and not run, willing to die, etc. No, in this sense, if I had to say I love you, in a romantic way, to another, again, it's Stella. It's evident, self-evident. So yeah. But then, I also love Carolyn. And here I'm in a mood to laugh, but if somehow they hear this, imagine the level of problems that I'm gonna have just saying, because I know that there is one principle of womanhood, so if I say I love you, and I have to Stella, but also I love you, Carolyn, here I will laugh because I really don't know what might happen, but more seriously, my vision of love, there is acceptance. That's my good Christian self. But then there's also not just to accept how things are, but to accept that it is within being the will to improve itself. And in this sense, it's kind of consistent, the way I envision this, namely my teenage sweetheart. She loved me for who I am, or who I was, but I was trying to impress her, even when she was satisfied. The German metaphysicians, I'm trying to impress them. And the European gods and goddesses, in a way, I've understood this recently, maybe too late, or I already knew, but then I forgot. I don't know, but in a way, I'm trying to impress them. And I'm partly afraid of disappointing them, and here, this is partly what I am. When here I speak, that's my Protestant self. Let's bring God out of Christianity to justify what I'm about to say. When I read what they have produced, or their videos, or their books, etc., I find this brilliant. Intellectually, it's really brilliant, and I have been very arrogant, trash-talking pretty much everyone, but I'm not confident enough to trash-talk the intellectual production, or artistic, in the case of Carolyn's poems, to trash-talk the intellectual production of these people, and my worldview is mostly intellectual, since 2009 or 2013, or the intellectual quest has begun in 2013, but in a sense, I love them spontaneously because of their soul, because I know that they have a noble soul. I am attracted because of their appeal. They are exciting intellectually, or they are brilliant. They are exciting, and they are good in a sense that if I have to love myself through them, I would love them, and I love them in a sense, but the book by Varg, European Reflections on Polytheism, etc., the writings and the videos of Apollonian Germ, the writings and video of Carolyn, the books of Cachet, the videos of Survive the Jive, the videos of Scarlett, the books and the videos of Karol, Hyperboreans, I know his path broadly, but I haven't followed his production, but I'm confident. Here, really, I have been very arrogant, but also partly confident in trash-talking the Anglo-Saxon, the PhD, the scientists are, but this their production, although formally it's not German metaphysics, but the content, it's really great. And in this sense, it's coherent with my worldview, saying that we, here I speak as the European community, we are reconstructing Christianity, but not the Christianity of the Bible precisely. It's a re-establishing process, and here that's how I think. When I am weak, I turn towards the Bible and the God of the Bible that I envision and imagine, and I get deceived by the biblical mythology. But the Bible, in a sense, I am a Christian. Because for me, Christianity is the religion of God made man, and it's also the religion of suffering and redemption eventually. And there are very profound ideas expressed in the limited language of the Bible. And it's also the religion of love. And when I am weak, physically, morally, intellectually, whatever, I tend to turn towards the Bible and be tempted. Ah, that's a very funny joke. Ha ha ha. Tempted to just, let's just comment the Bible, etc., etc. But when I am slightly more confident, I'm a Nietzschean Christian in the sense that the Bible, the message, the content has to be kept in the broad outline, but it has to be a European Bible in a way. So that it seems contradictory, but actually it's not, in a sense that, and I know it's true philosophically, namely it's a self-recreating process. That's how I reconcile, in an intellectually coherent, for me at least, way, European mythology, the pantheon, and Christian mythology, and yeah, that on an intellectual level, it seems quite satisfying. We are not convinced. We want the cross. No, it's not a cross. It's a spear hanging on the tree, a world tree. That's not a no. Seriously. I will say what I think. My jokes, my philosophical jokes, they are for the PhD. They are for myself in a way, but they are spontaneous. But they are for the PhD in physics, not physics, in physics, chemistry, biology, philosophy, yeah, and the politics, economics. The jokes about the philosophical jokes, they are only PhDs could understand. But actually, that's part of love. If I say, if I wanted people to laugh in a joyful way at my best jokes, Hegel and Nietzsche and Kant, I'm not sure that Kant is capable of laughing. He's too. That's the yeah. We make a joke. Hegel and Nietzsche, they are very serious. Hegel is very serious formally. Kant is supposed to be very serious. So in a way, from the perspective, here that's a joke for whoever will find this funny. From the perspective of Hegel, Kant is not very serious philosophically in terms of the formal aspect. And the content as well, but yeah, it's not very serious. But actually Kant is the guy who is really serious in the sense that he looks very boring, and he is. I cannot imagine Kant laughing, or, well, Nietzsche, I cannot envision him not laughing, the real Nietzsche. Although he... Kant is the guy who says, I am always good, but I suffer. Nietzsche is the guy, I'm always bad in comparison with the standards set by Kant, but I'm always joyful, although I constantly suffer. And Hegel, he tries to put order into the madhouse of German metaphysicians. No, but seriously, this kind of joke, it's not really a joke, but this kind of funny moments, if I have to share them with an other, I want to share them with the European gods and goddesses, but in order for this to be possible, they have to improve formally. And there's also Matthew Siegel, footnotes to Plato. If I had to answer the question, who do you love? And by love, I mean, I want to impress them. I don't want to disappoint them. And eventually, I have to, partly, I guess, it's part of love. This is why love hurts. But the people I want to impress, the people I want to be with in peace and joy, the most, the people I'm spontaneously attracted to, the people that I want to be with, that I try to be with, that I have been trying to seduce them, not in a... with Stella I have tried, there's the seductive process, here are my attributes, the good ones, the frustration that I experience when I am rejected, the joy that I encounter when I am partly contradicted, in a sense, okay, this guy, we do not accept him, but maybe he has interesting things to say. These are these people. But then I understand philosophy well enough. So, yeah, footnotes to Plato, Matthew, is some sort of the formal complement to the philosophical and the religious and philosophical content of the European gods and goddesses. Yeah. And all the others, the people who I understand the most and who have been very important, or who I have been attracted to intellectually, they are very good intellectually as well, but either they have been inspired. It's not cheating, in a way it is, without, everyone has been inspired to a certain extent, but it's not cheating, but I do not fully understand the process, but it's, I acknowledge their intelligence, and in a way I love them as well, but it's not spontaneous, whereas with the European gods and goddesses, there is the combination of spontaneous attraction, interest, all the things that I associate with love, for good and for bad as well, I guess. So if I have to live the experience of love in the sense of what love commonly understood ought to be, namely to love a person because you love a person or a group of people, because this is how it is, and not I have a formal duty to love them, and this is the formal duty that I have for the whole of mankind, but because and through them I love Europe, in the sense that here also, in case it's not clear but it's clear for me, my entire intellectual spiritual view and empirical life and metaphysical whatever is connected to European people in an anthropological sense. I'm sure of this. All the decisions that I've made, it was to try to prevent white people from being hurt. But then there are various degrees of white people in terms of anthropology, in terms of culture, in terms of objective ergas, in terms of art, in terms of philosophy. But yeah, I love European anthropologically more than others, that's a problem for others and for myself, but within the European people anthropologically, what is called white, I love whites differently depending on various determinations, anthropological, but also cultural, religious, ethical, and philosophical, etc., etc. And I know that because I understand dialectics partly, it's probably a dialectical joke, that I have to love my empirical family. And in a way, I love them like all the others at a certain moment, but my life has consisted in trying to escape from my empirical family, not because precisely can we say I love you to someone that you are consciously trying to escape from? But I know I'm intelligent enough to know that I can't. That's why I have started my French Revolution, because I have to confront my contradictions, and the contradictions which keep reappearing is that the members of my empirical family they keep reappearing whenever I have to solve the contradiction. So I don't know. I say what I think spontaneously, knowing that I do not. There's a dialectical process. When you love someone, it turns into its opposite, etc. So I have said what I thought, but here I will just conclude by saying that whenever I encounter someone with whom I might be in conflict with, I try to speak calmly, but if I have to use my secret weapon, which is kind of a nihilistic weapon, but it's Martin Luther, Spinoza, you have no free will. But the people, and here it expresses partly a truth about myself, or maybe the full truth, I don't know, but with the people that I've had the opportunity to talk to, Apollonian, Germ, and Carolyn, I would not dare not, as of yet, use this trick. Namely, I wouldn't say, I haven't, or I don't think I have, but precisely because as of now, I will not, or that's how I think. To use the trick, you are totally determined, put the blame on me. I have tried this, but in a sense that if there has to be a kind of resistance in a kind of a struggle for a good struggle, I have, in a way, I have too much respect for them to use my weapon, my secret weapon, so easily. Whereas for the others, spontaneously, if they become annoying, I say, okay, you are not free. Okay, I know that's how I will probably, in a way, the way I express this philosophically, in the sense that trying to steal the freedom of others, which is Protestantism in the sense of Lutheran determinism and Spinozian philosophy, and also Hegel's view, is a way to say, okay, I don't want you to be free, so I want you to be a child in a way, and I can do this very spontaneously for non-Europeans anthropologically, for women, most women, then for non-Anglo-Saxons, I have my hierarchy, but this is the ambiguity of philosophical love or religious love, is to say, to who is willing to give up on his freedom the most easily when confronted with the consequences of freedom. You ask a person, you say, I want to be free. You say, okay, to be free means you have to accept that all the failures, they are your failures. In this sense, it's just common experience. In modern societies, most people do not want to be free. They put most non-whites who are not satisfied. They put the blame on whites. Most leftists, they put the blame on the right-wingers. Most right-wingers, they put the blame on the Democrats or the left, etc. There's always someone else to blame. And the question here, it's really serious, is tell me who you blame for your ills and your failings, and I will tell you who you are. And when I really suffer, I blame God. That's my anti-Christian self. Or I blame Hegel. I have too much respect for God to blame God, so I blame Hegel, but because I know that Hegel, in the sense, this is how I function when I really suffer. I talk to Hegel or to God and to say, why am I the negative? I would like to be forgiven, but then I speak to God or to Hegel, and yeah. But then I refuse. Also, I refuse to be told. There's this conflict. Namely, I would not. Here's my contradiction. If someone used this trick on me, like, you are totally determined, I would say, no, I don't want to. That's the rebellious. That's the rebellious spirit. But the Christians, they call this Lucifer, with a negative connotation, although Lucifer is the light bringer. And the Europeans, it's just the European spirit. And in this sense, when I'm not weak, the European spirit, there's the European soul and the European spirit, which is maybe the Germanic spirit or the German spirit, but the European spirit is the spirit of freedom in a sense. This is the spirit of Odin. That's how I try to solve the contradiction when Odin, in a sense, he is not Jesus, but Christ. But Christ is just the moral aspect. Odin, it also includes this, but there's the scientific and there's the freedom aspect, so it's quite complicated. But Christianity and paganism, the European, they coincide eventually, but what I'm trying to express is when I encounter contradiction, when I use my trick of saying, you are fully determined, Martin Luther, Spinoza, I'm willing to use this for everyone if the situation really is complex, except in last resort, this would be right-wing, who have gone through the right-wing path, but then who have become maybe more wise, beyond, but who have had the same path as I've had. They are the ones I would not want, or I would not spontaneously use the determinism trick, because out of respect, in a sense, that's the ambiguity. Namely, when you steal someone else's freedom, you treat him in the negative sense as a slave, but otherwise as a child in the positive sense. Namely, you are not responsible for your failures, so stop complaining, but you are not responsible. And if he accepts, it means that he is removed from whatever wrong he thinks he has done, but also from responsibility. Now he has to be treated like a child. And I am willing to do this when I'm confronted by a resistance for most people. But precisely, here it's part of who I am. Carolyn, when I encounter resistance, it can be positive and negative. The negative is there's a little fight in you, but the positive is I love you so much because you are demanding in a good sense and you want the best for me because you want me to improve. And here, this is my truth in a way, that when Carolyn, that's just an illustration, when she starts trash talking the idiots of the Doltrite, it turns me on intellectually, but it's partly connected with an erotic tangent because I want to improve, I want to satisfy her because she's demanding, but she's, in my view, she's kind of fair because when I'm really decadent, she wants me to upgrade my standards, and this is my vision of love that was already potentially contained in my teenage romance, although it was just tender sweet, but there was also already the potentiality, and it's the same with the German metaphysician. So here it's my attempt, which may not be satisfactory as of now, but this is how I understand things. My love of Europe and of Germany. Europe is only positive in my view. Germany, mostly positive, but there is also the negative. And what I call the European spirit, maybe it's an attempt to reconcile, I don't know here, but an attempt to reconcile the soul and the spirit, the soul of Europe and the spirit of Germany. And who do I love? I love the European gods and goddesses. And what I think about us, I've already said, is that we are because here I am honest, I am not in a position to speak, when I speak to them, when I think I speak to them, I am not in a position to say, I and you are just my children and I control you. No, precisely. Whereas with all the others, the CIA, etc., I can envision talking to them or say, okay, you are not free, you don't know what you're doing, etc. That's the problem, in a sense, that I love you, and if I suffer because of you, and I partly do because already slightly because I've been trying to reach you for 3 years and I've consistently failed almost. But what I can say really here, I try to simplify while being slightly rigorous nonetheless. I love you because you are demanding, you are challenging, but in a good sense, you are good. I know you are good. An aspect of you, at least, you have a noble soul. And I know myself, when I'm honest with myself, also there is nobility in my soul, but I am not always strong enough to have my best aspect, I guess. Or maybe it's partly logically determined, but there is nobility in my soul, because a great woman loved me when I was 15, and this woman, I know she was Stella metaphysically, although she was Louison empirically, but yeah. And I am trying to impress you. I am afraid of disappointing you in these current circumstances. Then there's the German metaphysician. Here's my relation, me to myself, but when I have love, genuine love, it has to be relation to self, to another. And when I'm with a German metaphysician, it's partly the case, but it's really when I'm just for myself. But when I have to, if I say I love you to another, these are the European gods and goddesses, because they are if they are my reflections, they are my best reflections. Yeah. And what I intend to do is the principle that has driven my actions is I want us to solve all the world's problems, and I envision you as my spiritual family, and my worldview is intellectual and spiritual. And what I consciously plan to do is to antagonize others and to be friends with you. As long as I antagonize others, but eventually, if I have to become insane and antagonize everybody, you are the resistance against maybe my insanity, and that's the conflicts within the European pantheon. But I have made a mistake intellectually of trying to antagonize the strongest, Apollonian Germ, and directly, yeah, but it was a mistake because I know this to be true. In the current, I went too fast, and in the current state of things, he is not and you are not. So this is my mistake. That's why I've tried to restore the balance. But yeah. What I consciously plan to do is to wage my political struggle until I encounter opposition, which will probably take the form of my empirical family, and then I will speak as what I think, namely I will speak my truth. I have to speak my truth philosophically, namely I am reason, which implies that reality is within my mind, but whatever. I have spoken for more than 2 hours. I don't know what will be the consequences. But I just conclude saying that the mistake that I think, and I have to accept my mistakes. This is part of loving who I am. So I will not pretend that I didn't make the mistake, but I have explained why. It's simply I traveled too fast and I forgot to go through all the steps again. But of course, if I have to go through all the steps of my own process, I'm on the side of right-wing people, but I have traveled way too fast in the sense that I have understood the balance, the dialectics, Wechselwirkung, etc. way too fast, which means I haven't really understood. Yeah, but when I let my heart speak, my heart beats for Europeans, anthropologically old Europeans, and my entire life has been intellectual, spiritual, but also empirical, driven by trying to prevent white people from being hurt. Because it's mostly white people who hurt other white people, then it turns me insane against other whites, and then which group of white I have to be angry against, because, and here's the insanity begins. But yeah. What I think, the European gods and goddesses, you are the best. And if I hurt you, if I have hurt you, I have, because I know that you have suffered in your moral life, because the work is here to testify. But if I hurt you, the reason is because I know that you are the best, basically. And here I speak to God. Maybe someday the real God will say, maybe I hurt you because I thought that you were the best. But in order to trust myself, to reach this level of self-confidence, I need to gain the approval of the European gods and goddesses. Namely, I want them to admire me the way I admire them, males and females. It's different. There is more admiration for men and love for women, but then it's my own categories, yeah, but whatever. And this is my attempt. I mean, it's not very rigorous, but the decisions that I have taken consciously over the past few weeks, they are motivated by my love for Europe. But Europe is a soul, and also a spirit, but the European soul is potentially in all white people. So white people have to be protected. That's my truth. White people have to be protected against a threat, but the threat can come from non-white. Then that's the racist self which awakens. But then there is the European aristocratic mindset which says we have to help non-whites, and here the confusion begins, because then I understand that these are white people hurting other whites through the mediation of non-whites, by letting sometimes non-whites commit crimes. This is really the kind of complexity. So my intention, they are clear. The consequences will come back at me in one way or another. My empirical family, I cannot deny that I have loved them, and a part of me still do, because they have enabled me to experience my greatest love experience, my teenage romance, etc. But here it's really dialectical love, in the sense that my problem is the love of the heart versus the love of the mind, and it works for my spiritual family, the European gods and goddesses, and my empirical family. But my empirical family, I understand that I have to love them intellectually, and my spiritual family as well. So both, I have to love them intellectually. So both, it's some sort of a duty. So here it's my Hegelian self, my intellectual cognitive, that I cannot renounce, because this is my entire. But the difference, precisely, this is, I come up with my best trick. It's not. It's my own trick for good. I understand. No, but seriously, I understand that eventually I have to love everyone out of intellectual reasons. That's amor intellectualis Dei, Spinoza. But then, when it's equal on both sides, I have to love both for intellectual reason. It is the heart which have to choose, and then my heart switches toward the European gods and goddesses, because I am spontaneously attracted towards them, and I have all the characteristic of love: seduction, attraction, interest, fear of disappointment, will to impress, to make laugh, to spend time joyfully together, etc. That's the story that I tell myself. Whatever comes out of this video, I will go out, do what I plan to do before making the video. I don't know if I will still can, but politically, my libertarian revolution, to reach America, to reach the European gods and goddesses, to protect white people from hurting one another. But what kind of white people, what kind of hurt? Years really become complex. So I've said what I had said, motivated by Protestant Kantian principle. I publish the video without overthinking about the consequences, how do we come back at me, and politically, that's my own problem, just on a political individual level. I don't ask anyone to do this, but right-wing libertarianism, just to stop the nonsense politically, which is my own nonsense, but I have to revolt against some aspects of me. And okay, I am clear with this. But then if also I understood why I suffer from masochism and other forms of moral suffering. I've read a book about psychology, but precisely, I cannot, here it's a note for myself, I cannot love myself, accept myself in a really passive, feminine self, I accept, whatever. Accepting myself involves that there is an aspect of me that wants to achieve, partly a competitive self. And then maybe the competition becomes too difficult, and then I say, okay, I accept, that was a mistake. But if I have to accept, it was not a mistake, because, no, but seriously, I understand the feminine acceptance kind of love, but I kind of revolt against this, because I want my masculine love, which is my own version of love, which can be negative and can hurt others and myself, and to accept me has maybe that's my Hegelian compromise. Hegel, sometimes he comes up with a trick for the better, with a compromise for a really good compromise, a really good marriage. And if I had to, consciously, if I want to marry a spouse, a wife, it's Stella, the empirical Stella, and then she can, just after having signed the paper, okay, well, I already regret when I look all the things you've thought about me, no, I want divorce. No, it's not going to be that easy. Oh, the drama starts again. Seriously, yeah. I know what I think consciously. I know that I have an unconscious, a subconscious, which is made manifest in the world. I have partly to battle my subconscious, but also to accept. I have to accept the battle. Here's my my card. I have said what I thought, and I have tried to express simply a very simple idea. Let's celebrate love. Not again. Dua Lipa, fall in love again. Because all the songs that I associate with you, Stella, Carolyn, and Scarlett, and that I have associated with Marie in 2018, and that I have associated with Apollonian Germ and Hyperborean. American songs by Europeans. I will not. If my worldview is completely inconsistent, incoherent, I have to take the blame at some level to suffer the consequences of my contradiction. So I've understood this. As long as I can consciously act, I will act according to what I think is right. I want to save Europe, maybe by antagonizing the best in Europe. If I can save Europe without antagonizing those that I consider to be the best, the European gods and goddesses of the pantheon, it's even better. But if it has to go to struggle for the sake of saving our people, not just physically, but the spirit, the soul, which implies, hopefully it's clear, that we have to take care of non-whites for the better. I will stop there. My worldview is partly ludicrous, but yeah. That's my vision of love. The love that I felt for Louison transcended with my intellectual insanity, which is partly there's still the comical, the dark, it has become darker, but the twisted and funny, hopefully it's still there. And yeah. Amen. No, that's a joke. We will end up on that joke for the Christians and the pagans and the romantics. I think about Novalis. And when I think about Novalis, I think about Europe, about Germany, about Wagner, about maybe about what is best in me, which includes darkness, but yeah. If I have to love myself, I have explained how I think. This think and feel at the same time. Yeah. I will live my life as long as I will live my life, which is partly intellectual and spiritual, so yeah. I said what I consciously wanted to say while expressing myself spontaneously.